Welcome to the Marvel Alliance podcast, where we cover anything and everything to do with the Marvel Universe and the comics, TV, and movies. We will go from the Earth 616 to the Mojoverse to the TVA in order to bring the Marvel Universe right to you. I'm the man without fear, Chris.
I'm your friendly neighborhood Brent.
I'm the master of magnetism, Travis.
Alliance, assemble.
Assemble.
Volume 210. And gentlemen, I am not okay.
It was a rough one.
Rough couple days.
Okay. And I never would have thought an X-Men 97 episode or anything X-Men in the animated stuff could basically break us.
You know, my alarm goes off at 4:30, and I look at the time, and I'm like, oh good, I can go back to sleep. I have plenty of time before I have to actually get up for work. And then I'm like, oh crap, it's Wednesday. I have to get up. I got to watch X-Men.
I got
get
work
up,
to do.
Go watch X-Men, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I wish I had time to watch this the second time before I go to work. And I probably could have squeezed it in, but it would have made things tight. But don't worry, I've gotten my second viewing in, and I'm glad I did, because man, this was one heck of an episode.
Need it too, Brent. Need it too. I was walking my dog, and as I'm walking it, the GUA chat is lighting up, being like, "I've seen X-Men. I've seen X-Men." Someone was like, "Oh my god, it's amazing." I'm like, "Guys, I don't think it's amazing after the last episode, and I needed 2 days to recover before we started talking about it."
Well, you are back, returning to us after a family delay at that point. You needed to be a dad last week, so we understand.
Yeah, my boy kicked my butt in the trying to put him to bed department. So yeah, when it finally happened, I was just too spent.
It won't be the last time that happens.
No.
Just to let you know.
Oh, I'm not, and I don't have a winning record of right now, so I don't know about the lifetime.
You know, when
record.
they get to 18, you get to 19, 20 years old, and they come home trash, you give them that garage pass at that point, and they'll still kick your butt. So
Eventually, you will get a winning record on him going to sleep, but it'll be other things that cause your headaches.
Yeah. So, but how's been your week, Brent?
Good. Got nothing to really complain about. You know, just seeing a lot of love for the X-Men this week, and that's always fun. Outside of that, nothing exciting on the home life, which frankly is my style. So can't complain.
How about you, Travis?
I'm pretty much in Brent's camp. Just smooth sailing. A couple good TV shows the last few days, and work has been good. I got tomorrow's my day off. Couldn't have been better. So yeah, let's giddy up with the X-Men. Like Brent said, it's been going around all week.
Yep, it's it's been busy work week, but yeah, everything's okay. I'm seeing Civil War tomorrow night, so I'm excited and also frightened about what I'm going to see in that movie. So
I heard it was good.
I've heard it was good too, so I'm looking forward to it. So, but all right, well, we've got the episode to talk about tonight, so we got a lot to say about it. So let us get all the network plugs out of the way. We are part of the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network with 7 shows covering the wide range of geek and nerdom. To see the full schedule, subscribe to the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network at GUA Pod Network so you know when all the shows drop. We also have a Patreon, so if you want to throw a couple of shekels our way, we've got 2 tiers. We've got our dollar tiers, our tip jar to say, hey, you think we're doing a good job? And then we've got our $5 tier, where there are ad-free episodes, early access episodes, and Patreon-exclusive shows, including our recently wrapped-up show, We Can Watch This All Day, the Marvel Alliance Infinity Saga Rewatch. Now, continuing on to our newest show, Tales from the House of X. We've got our first episode dropped last month, looking at Deadpool. And Brent, we've got a recording Monday night.
We do. I've done my homework. I did it last weekend. Deadpool 2 is what we will be discussing, and I'm ready to talk about it.
Yes, Deadpool Part 2. So we will definitely enjoy that at that point. So that'll drop for the patrons at the end of the month. The DC Alliance guys are doing their DC films through the years. You just did V for Vendetta. What is next up for you all?
Batman Begins is next on deck, and just a little preview for V for Vendetta. First time watching it, tad overrated.
Oh,
interesting. All right.
Yeah,
you guys got a trailer to talk about tomorrow night too, don't you?
Yes, for a movie that I've only ever for a sequel to a movie I've only ever watched once. So
okay.
Okay.
I'm excited to talk about that with Joe. I'm interested to hear his thoughts. Yeah, content.
I expect you to break out into song as you review it.
I'll try. I'll be like the WB Frog.
There you go.
If you don't, I don't even know what you're doing.
I know. Yeah, you got to get the people demand it.
It's part of the contract. I think one musical a year.
Well, especially we know David's going to demand it, so we know at least
You
that.
signed a very different contract than I did.
Yeah,
I at least had
did.
my lawyers look over that one, so.
No, I just blindly signed immediately. This is really a mistake. I'm on a 20-year deal that's not friendly for me at all.
All right. Well, again, we got some great content at that point. We've also got Joe doing his Multiverse Minutes, Disney Dives. In a couple of days, he will be dropping his next episode of that. His most recent episode was Fantasia. So, if you're not a member of our Patreon, what are you doing? Go to www.patreon.com/GUA Network. We've got a ton of back content on there in addition to what stuff we just listed. We want to thank our patrons. We can't do this without your support. And last but certainly not least, we want to make sure if you don't have that time, to join us on Patreon, take 30 to 90 seconds to rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcast. We greatly appreciate it. And we want to thank our official sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com, for omnibus hardcover collected edition needs. JP and the crew at OPP have got it going on with excellent customer service, immaculate packaging, ships around the world. Earn rewards on all of these lovely Marvel Omnis, including Punisher, Ghost Rider 2099, Uncanny X-Men Omnibus Volume 2. The Dark Phoenix Saga was in that. Use that code MARVELGUA at checkout to get $2 off every single order. And as always, I want to thank them for being an official sponsor. All right, gentlemen. It's going to be hard. It's going to be difficult, but let's do some non-spoiler thoughts on X-Men 97, Episode 5, Remember It.
I mean, just out of the gate, has to be the best episode of the season. Has to be the best episode of the season. There might be other episodes that have individual moments that you like better. I will accept that, but just best episode of the season by far. For me personally, it's not even close. And I know we ranked them last week. This is now number one. This episode had everything, right? It had the action that you want to see in superhero content. It had the action that you really can only see in animated content. That's so hard for them to do in live action and make look well. It had the drama. It had the crazy family dynamics because the X-Men is a family. We had family dynamics. We had the frankly the soap opera type stuff that you get from the X-Men. We had team building. We had trying to do human mutant relations and outreach and stuff like it had everything. Like this whole episode was just a microcosm of what makes the X-Men the X-Men.
I'm right there with Brent. And again, this had Easter eggs galore. If you're an X-Men fan, like just look everywhere when we go partway through this episode, and you're like, there. I absolutely loved it. I was saying earlier that I have a take on this. I think this is the best episode of the series, including the 5 seasons that precede it. I know there's some really good story arcs in those, but I do think there are times where it goes like it might run too long on something. There was no wasted time. Everything had double meaning at times. I callbacks galore. It was a glorious episode, like Brent said about the animation too. Just when we get the final climax scene there, the animation there is superb. I can't believe I had any worries going into this show about the animation too, because again, this is just another absolute amazing episode with a very tragic but beautiful ending too, just animation style wise. Just looking at it, I can't say enough good things about this episode.
Yeah, it's one of those where, yes, obviously I'm with you all on best episode of the season, if not the best episode that X-Men the animated series has ever produced. Again, somebody'd say, well, that's kind of unfair and different. No, I'm just saying in general, best single episode they have done. I'm not comparing it to Phoenix Saga. That was a series of episodes. I'm talking about single episode. When you hear the title, Remember It, at that point, I'm starting to, when I watched the episode, I said, okay, I see where this is going. But as I start being, up to date on what's currently going on in X-Men, I'm saying, I'm starting to feel something that is currently going on with the X-Men right now. And just when you think they're, really having a good moment at that point, it's like, it's almost like the Parker luck is for Peter Parker, the X-Men. It's just like they can't be successful for too long. It's just not possible. And when they are, it's just like, okay, when's the other shoe gonna drop? And like you said, the character development, the statements that are made on the show, the real life kind of allegories that are going on in this show. I mean, it's when we say, and I'm going to put it on the screen, X-Men 97 is the blueprint. Yes, it legitimately is the blueprint of what the MCU needs to look at. Yes, we had to replace the other one because the other one has gone away. But I think this one I think will
That like
is
stick a bit better chance of sticking.
better chance of sticking around in the sense of what the MCU should look to when creating it. I don't need X-Men 97 to be the MCU. I just need them to take what they've been doing and say that you can bring this toward a drama. You can do this with live action, and this is proof right here.
Who's to say it's not, though? That's the beauty thing about this episode, too. When we finish this episode, there's about 5 people that could have been potentially responsible for the events of the episode. There are 2 or 3 different ways that this could go. We're not sure how, like, towards the end, like, things could there's so many possibilities, and that's why I'm really excited, because it's a tragic ending, but then you're like, when you stop and think about everything in the episode, you're like, wait a second, where are they going from here? That's the question.
That is a good question, and I will certainly talk about it. There's a pretty common theory out there that I also was thinking about, but we just need to get past the spoiler wall.
Yeah.
All right, so I think this is a good time, so we'll take our first ad break. Again, if you have not seen episode 5, remember it. Stop right now. Like, we're going to do an amazing breakdown like we always do every week, but like, it's not going to do it justice. You just have to experience it. So again, these ads help keep the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network funded and all those lovely things. At that point, we don't get to choose the ads that come on. They're going to repeat. They're going to be a little loud. So give you that 3 count to turn that volume down before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. All right. So, just on the title alone, remember it. It is a very loaded title. Between the obvious of this is Gambit's kind of catchphrase at that point, the whole idea of remembering it, we have a lot of characters remembering things in the sense of past things, dreams, things like that. We've got Jean, Scott, Rogue, Magneto, all battling memories of their past and what their future holds at this point. So, like with everything, I mean, it's not just a catchphrase. It is even Gambit's dealing with his own memories of what he wants to move forward with.
Yeah, he has a great discussion with Nightcrawler as well, Chris, about that. So that's a good point. That's what they deal with in this episode, and they do a great job of cleaning most of that up before we get our climactic third act.
Yeah. The thumbnail had Nightcrawler in it, and I'll be honest, that's what I focused on. I was like, oh, that's Nightcrawler. That's awesome. I didn't know he was going to be in this one. But that title, I mean, yeah, like you said, that is Gambit's catch, or it's part of his. The name's Gambit. Remember it, and it's like at some point, Gambit's having a moment. He's having a moment in this episode.
Well, especially that's the title of the episode, but we always have gotten a theme now with. Previously on X-Men. He is now the one saying previously on X-Men. And we get a scene, we get some new footage at that point, like we've had from week to week. That also hints at what's going on or what's being put back to. We get a scene of Cable versus Apocalypse from season 4. So we have a big hint that maybe he might be continuing on, joining us. We get shots from the Genosha episode Slave Island, which we already figured when we were going back to Genosha what it is, with Gambit Nightcrawler. But those were the big kind of, not as many this week at that point, until the episode opens with reporter Trish Tilby. Trish Tilby has been a frequent mainstay of the original show as the reporter at that point. She actually does have comic book origins. She is a reporter in the Comics and X Factor Volume 1, and she also is has been a very frequent girlfriend of Beast in the comics as well. So that's why when you see her having a little back and forth with him and blushing, that's that little tip of the hat. I do like how he's wearing he got all prim and proper. I mean, it is Beast, but Beast also recognizes like, oh, he's kind of wanted to make an impression, and she definitely made an impression on him.
Hey, Blue can blush too,
Mm-hmm. Beast got game. Beast got game.
He's got something.
He's proven that more than once.
Yep.
He's definitely got something. However, his contributions this season are rather lacking.
I mean, he did use gamma rays to carbon date living life forms, so there's that.
And
There-
fix
yeah,
Bishop's device to travel through time.
he's working on that novel. How's that coming? You doing
Yeah,
so good there,
yeah.
Beast?
I mean, he was in prison for all of season 1, so
Kind of feels it's kind of like his same season 1 stuff. So I'm hoping for more moments with him to kind of get his mainstay. I mean, for crying out loud, Jubilee got half an episode.
I think he might be needed going forward a lot.
Yeah.
Chris.
So, but she's doing a big expose on the X-Men trying to, it's meant to be, as she says later, Scott, like this whole thing is to help humans see, who the X-Men are, not be afraid of them. They're like everyone. They're here to protect us. So it's I wouldn't say it's a puff piece, but it's meant to put them in a shining light. However, when she speaks, she's speaking to Jubilee and Beast at that point. I love that we get a shot of Cyclops with a sleep mask so that he's accidentally not like waking up and blowing everyone. I mean, it's one of those things like, oh yeah, that makes sense, but just to kind of see it there, it's just like, oh, that's interesting. But then we get that awkward shot of Jean and Scott in the kitchen, like kind of staring away for it. Just, oh, they're not okay either.
Nope.
This is not an easy fix. No.
No.
They're not okay at all. Like, and you know what? We don't want Gene and Scott to be an easy
No.
fit. Like it would have really, I think, retroactively hurt episode 3 with the clone reveal stuff to have suddenly Scott be like, well, I still got you, so I'm good. You're the original, and even though you're exact, I still get one of you at least. No, like that really would have hurt to have them just get over it, or both of them really so easily.
Yeah. Go ahead, Travis.
No, I'm just saying Cyclops doesn't do a lot in this episode to make people think that he always makes the right decisions.
Yeah. One might say he was wrong.
One could say that.
Whoa now. Whoa. Swinging. There was a sign at Genosha that said Magneto is right. I got a good kick out of that.
It did at that point. Those are facts, though. Those are definitely facts, proven facts.
We'll find out.
Yep. So the report talks about how the UN has officially recognized Genosha, and for those that are where in the Marvel world is Genosha? It is off the coast of Madagascar, and it first appeared in Uncanny X-Men number 235. And in Volume 2 of Adjectiveless X-Men number 87, the UN actually ceded control of the island to Magneto, which he continued to rule for many years. We do see this was an interesting conglomeration of Rogue, Magneto, Gambit heading to Genosha. I said, that's an interesting combination. That's let's keep on poking this bear of this love triangle. And the newly rebuilt Blackbird. I'll tell you what. The writing in this we can agree on is top notch, but the lines they give to Magneto and the zingers he pulls on that one, I mean, it's great in the sense of Gambit making a backhanded comment towards Magneto, and he says, our newly, if something were to happen in our newly built Blackbird,
yes.
the gravity is not going to be a problem for Rogue and myself. However, for you, it's going to be a big problem.
Yes.
It's a nice touch for Magneto there. And I had quite a good chuckle out of that, especially the Blackbird was literally destroyed 2 or 3 episodes ago, so it's exactly a pretty good point.
I mean, they always have one in production because they're going to need it soon.
Say they have like a hangar of 20 down below another level. It's like, oh, get another one out, like Iron Man armor.
Yeah, exactly. We see shots of Genosha like we did from the trailer. You have this kind of like big pyramid palace with the statues of Magneto and Professor X. It's interesting in the sense of just the two philosophies now finding a way to come together, kind of like their version of Mount Rushmore. As you pointed out, Brent, we see signs praising Magneto and also celebrating the X-Men. Now in the comics, in Genosha, there was a gigantic monument to Magneto in the capital city of Hammer Bay, which we also do see in this episode, along with Magda Square and Havershaw Heights. But, this was a nice little tip of the hat to what was in the comics. So when they land, they're greeted not only by Val Cooper, who I don't trust.
Yeah, I got a theory on that. I think that she's Mystique.
I've just got a theory that it's not even just Mystique. I have other theories that she's behind this all.
I mean, Val Cooper, it depends. where she's at in like in the comics, she's definitely been at times more on the side of the X-Men, more against them. Like she, if I'm not mistaken, was like the government liaison with X Factor for a while, and it just kind of depends on who she's around. I think both of those theories are valid. Like one way or the other, it feels like she is involved.
Yeah.
I know one thing. If I'm in them in the show, if I see her, I'm gone. Like, okay, yeah, peace out. Everything hits the fan when you're around.
So Val Cooper's there, but we get a couple of surprises that are also on the ground. Madeline Pryor's back, and you know, I like it how he said she's the new one of their big liaisons, and she's being tapped because the team can spare another Jean. I was like,
Oh,
ooh, too
that
soon.
phrasing, that
I,
phrasing.
I like that she's the one that says, oh, we can spare another Jean. Too soon? Too soon? Not enough? Okay.
Have some more confidence in yourself, Madeline.
But we also get another surprise that greets him, a nice friendly face. Who's there?
I mean, you know, mentioned it earlier, Nightcrawler himself.
Yeah, Nightcrawler at that point. And interesting enough, voiced by the same actor who did it, but almost, I agree with, it definitely sounds like, the Geekverse guys pointed this out last night, like, definitely sounds a little bit younger instead of a little bit older. So, I mean, applaud the voice actor for kind of being able to keep it in the sense of, like, what we kind of got used to.
It's like there's been a weight lifted from the character. Like he's not as heavy-hearted as he was in the original series.
Yeah.
And with that comes a more jovial attitude, you know, a happier tone of voice, I guess.
You might have also meant preachy, Brent. That could have been another one, another term
Sure,
to describe
sure.
him.
I think that's fair to say.
I want to shout out the animation on his teleporting and the sound too, because they get the comic Bamf down path every time, so they don't ever miss it. So props
Yeah,
to
the
that.
animation
really
style
good.
really
Really
improved, and I like what they did with the BAM thing too. Yeah, he's their liaison for mutant religions at that point to kind of coalesce them together, and typical for him. Gambit does reference the last time they met with the murderous monks that they fought against, and Nightcrawler takes him for a nice stroll on the ground level of Genosha to kind of get Rogue and Gambit to kind of be amongst the people while Magneto goes off to kind of meet with the new council. We do see the following mutants on the street. We get Leech, who we already saw earlier. We get Glob. He is made from wax-like substance. This allows light to travel through him, allowing him for everyone to see his skeleton and his eyeballs. We get Pixie, Lendley, E.A. Quantico. These were all from Matt Fraction's run on the X-Men, and including we also get Gargoyle.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, different just X-Men throughout the whole thing. And I couldn't remember all their names, I'll say it, but there were several that was like, I recognize you, I recognize you, I recognize you. I've never seen you. Yep, there it is. This. And it's just so many of them throughout the entire episode.
Yeah, like even just that roll call that Chris just read off, that would have been fine on its own in an episode. But that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Oh yeah, we get some others in a little bit too.
Yeah.
Nightcrawler tosses a apple from him. We find out it's charging like $10, which Gambit's like, a little bit of price gouging here. We don't get that. And I like how Nightcrawler kind of says, well, we've got a lot of work to do, but also we're just starting a nation. Things are going to be more expensive while we kind of figure this all out.
I just want to know what the exchange rate is.
Also, it's 1997, so that's that $10
that's
is
a
a
lot,
little bit
yeah.
less.
Yeah, a little bit steep there. And I like how he says, well, maybe just Gambit's asking the questions no one else will.
Gambit got an inner accountant in him.
Yep. So they get a little dance party getting ready to go on. Okay, the multiple man. We see Exodus, who, another deep pull related, a big, leader of the Acolytes in the comics, brethren of Magneto. We see Dazzler, if we remember from the Phoenix Saga at that point, for those that don't know what she can do, she can turn sound into light, but also sounds into shockwaves. And we also get another deep pull from also X Factor, Boom Boom.
Yeah, Boom Boom, I don't think she's been on. Maybe in one of those like random shots in the background or something, but I don't know. If she was on it, I'm not remembering it right now.
Wasn't Multiple Man in the X Factor?
Multiple Man was,
Yes.
yeah.
Okay.
And Boom Boom, at least to me, always just looked like another Jubilee. Like they always just look the same. They're not the exact same, but they always, like when I was first exposed to the character in the comics, I'm like, she looks just like Jubilee.
Yeah. A lot more brash too in the comics too. Very, very reckless. So then Nightcrawler sees Gambit kind of pining for Rogue, and he kind of goes like, "Hey, you should just go up to her, admit your love, marry her. Why not? Like you can't have one without the other," which is interesting coming from
A priest.
Nightcrawler because it's almost like he's saying like it's okay, you can't have one without the other, but that's okay, that's part of the journey.
Yeah, he also says something like your souls touch every time you look at each other. It's like
Yeah.
Nightcrawler's showing he's got some game too with those kind of lines.
He had a bit of forgiveness in there as well. He threw forgiveness in there too. So that obviously applies to Gambit with what has already transpired with Rogue and Magneto.
Yeah, Nightcrawler's got some huge game in the comics. It's quite impressive his the list of people he has been with in the comics. So, all right. So then we go back to we're back to Westchester and the report with Trish Tilby, who is sitting down with Scott Summers, and she says it's interesting enough. Like we've never in the show heard Jean referred to as Marvel Girl, but she does. She refers to Jean as Marvel Girl.
I was trying to remember that. Did they ever say it during the Phoenix Saga or the Dark Phoenix Saga or anything? I know we see the costume.
We see the
I think
costume.
maybe they mentioned it when she put on the costume just for briefly. I think you haven't worn that since you were Marvel Girl, I think might have been said. But that's about it. I don't
Yeah,
think
I'd have to
anything
go
else.
back and fact check it, but we definitely at least saw the costume.
Yeah,
Yeah,
100%.
it's one of those few characters that you had that moniker at one point and then just dropped it and just used your name. She's one of those few characters. We just call you your name,
I did. It's weird. Like names like Captain Marvel never bothered me, but Marvel Girl, something about it always seemed weird. Just
Yeah.
never quite sit with me. I can't even explain why, to be honest with you.
Yeah, Tilby refers to them as the power couple. And I was like, well, they're kind of like the only real couple of the X-Men, so yeah, we'll go with it.
Yeah, with the current roster that they have, yeah, pretty much that's it.
Yeah. So we then head to Jean, who is outside in the lake and kind of, it's interesting in the sense of like, channeling what happens next to, like playing with the water, doing her whole Moses thing, and Wolverine coming out there to say, hey, guess we're both skipping out in the interview. And she's using these kind of blobs of water to kind of look at her memories and saying like, I really shouldn't be doing an interview because I can't tell which memories are mine and which ones are Madeline's. And it's the struggle that she has in the sense like, I mean, no one can relate to it here in the sense of like, we still don't have an answer. And it'll be interesting to see if we ever will get an answer at the end of the season when she was taken. I almost think that we almost have to get an answer to kind of put that to bed because it always will be out there.
I think Wolverine can relate to her a lot here, where what happened in season 4, where he found out that he had memories implanted in him, didn't know which ones are real, which ones weren't. So I think he's probably the only one that can even closely relate. Not exactly, obviously, he wasn't abducted. Well, he actually technically was, yeah, but not by Mr. Sinister, but not like just an old rickety old man. But
yeah, and of course Madeline Pryor could relate, but they're not going to sit down and talk about it.
No.
Yeah, not after this stuff.
It's kind of. I still feel like they could figure it out if they did just sit and compare notes and be like, do you remember the Phoenix Saga? I remember the Phoenix Saga. Okay, do you remember the Dark Phoenix? I remember the Dark. Like, if they compared notes along that, like, they could narrow it down. And I'm kind of mixed feelings of whether or not I really want to know. Like, as the viewer, if I want to, because there's some people who are like, Wolverine was more interesting before we got the origin story
Fair.
of him.
I mean,
and but I mean, I like the origin story of him, so I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to know, but I do think they're going to tell us.
So during the interview, both Scott and Scott's telling the story, but it's intermixed with Jean also saying the same thing about how that when she had just gotten the Phoenix powers, she was able to hold back his power so that she could see his eyes, and seeing him, in his eyes will quote unquote anchor her. And then she kisses Logan. Like she goes and kisses Logan. And I was like, oh, okay, we are doing this at this point. But he does the noble thing. He's like, nope, not doing this. It's always been Scott and Jean. You need to work this out. I'm not doing this. This is not the way I want it. And I was like, go, Logan. But I'm also saying that I could easily see by the end of this season, or beginning of next season, she is at least with, like, Scott's going to be with Madeline. Wolverine's going to be with Jean for at least a part of the time. Like, this is going to be, I think this is not a one-time thing. This is going to be a thing.
Well, with what Jean catches Scott doing, I'm going to use that phrase, catches Scott doing later, yeah, like that's going to drive a further wedge between them.
Yeah, conveniently, one of the two things both people know. That's of those two things that happen between Scott and Jean. One of those one of those things happens. Both of them know about. One of those things Jean keeps to herself. Uh, but I gotta say, I did like this. This was basically a culmination of Wolverine pining for 5 seasons of X-Men the animated series, and I think I'm with Chris here. I don't think this is just a one-off. I do think there's going to be something to this. Maybe they might end up at the end of the season. Not sure. But I do think we're going to get more of this.
It'll come up again for sure.
Yeah. So Tilby then asks Scott about how's it like being a new parent, and Scott's kind of basically lies and denies like having it. And she's like, well, but I have medical records of you all going to the thing and giving birth to a son. The doctor talked about it, and then he quickly cuts Tilby off by saying that doctor is a bigot, wouldn't even deliver my son, called him a freak. And then he goes and basically channels old Magneto and just lambashes humanity at that point, saying, you're lucky that, we're not like you. We're never going to be like you. You guys are ungrateful. You persecute us. We defend you up and down. You should be thanking your lucky stars for us. We're different. We're like, he's kind of channeling. He's like, he doesn't right now, because he's so angry about losing his, his face. He says, I gave up my son, and he does. It almost seems like he doesn't believe the idea of coexistence between humanity and mutants.
He's definitely feeling it right now. I think if you were to talk to him about something else, he might have a more rational thought. But bringing up his son right now when the loss is so raw and stuff, all rationality is out the window.
Yeah, especially when at the end of this episode, Chris, I think he's going to be pushed so far over that edge.
Yeah. So we head back to Genosha, and we get this new kind of mutant council made up of some interesting folks: Sebastian Shaw, Emma Frost from the Hellfire Club, Banshee, Moira McTaggart, and Callisto, to talk about how this new government's going to work. And they have this kind of discussion and basically propping up Magneto, saying they want Magneto to be the leader of this. He's kind of the heir apparent with Charles, quote unquote, dead, and he's kind of, it's almost like he's resisting, but not really. And it's almost like this is kind of what he wanted, but it's almost like, be careful what you wish for.
Yeah. Couple things on that scene. One, I was curious if they would mention the Hellfire Club at all, or as they called it in X-Men, the animated series, the Inner Circle. And then just to know if they would change the name of it or not. And then I haven't read all of it, but
well, they do call it the Hellfire Gala when we saw that newspaper article in episode 1.
True.
Yeah.
Did you guys get Krakoa vibes and like
absolutely
the council
100%,
and
100%.
Moira was there? Now I'm like, oh, Moira, are you like? I realized she was a part of the show before, but Moira and with Krakoa was very different. Like I have read those, was very, very different than Moira was prior to the Krakoa era.
Yeah, I don't think we're getting mutant Moira in this show.
It'd be really
No, not
interesting if we did though.
Yes.
It would throw a wrench into 5 seasons of the show, but again, I wouldn't complain about it either. It'd be an interesting twist.
Hey, for those of you that want to have some fun and you meet Chris Claremont at a con, ask him what he feels about the Krakoa era and Jonathan Hickman. You might be there for a while. He's got thoughts. Guilty. So yeah, it is definitely having the vibes of the Quiet Council from the Krakoa era. So we head back to the X-Mansion and we see, when I first saw this, I didn't pick up on the vibes that, like, I thought Scott was talking with Jean and talking about their son and things like that, and he's kicking himself out how badly he handled the interview. They had this moment, they kissed. I was like, and then all of a sudden you hear this booming voice of like, God, Jean, like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, we're going there. We're pulling Emma Frost and Scott having mental affairs when Jean's alive. And I was like, oh, wow,
Yes.
we're doing this. We're pulling Grant Morrison stuff now.
There was one hint that I caught that it was Madeline and not Jean, and that was her hair was down.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go.
Because I saw this and I'm like, why is her hair down? Like, in reality, obviously, like sometimes people with long hair, they have it in a ponytail. Sometimes it's down, like it's different hairstyles. But in the show, that's not what they've done. They clearly made it that the ponytail is Jean,
Yep.
down is Madeline, and then she
even in the intro when they change it around now that they're back to that. So yeah, so the ponytail is always going to be Jean.
And she says, "Tell me about him. Like, what was he like?" That feels like a question of someone who's trying to be there, offer support to someone who's grieving and over this great loss. And it doesn't feel like a question that Madeline would ask. She had more time with him than Scott did.
Yeah. And I gotta say, shout out to them too, because right after this, when Jean kicks her out of the mine, we get what's the first thing we see? Emma Frost staring.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, she said, "Yeah, how you doing over there?"
Comment.
Just a little thing saying, "Yeah, I bet you did" at that point. So
nice. Yeah, like you said, Chris. Nice nod to that story arc where they were having this love affair in the mind, and it definitely takes those mental affair concepts to a whole new level when you're talking about a telepath as powerful as, well, in the comics Emma Frost is, and in the show Madeline Pryor / Jean Grey.
Yeah,
but
it works at that point. But then Jean confronts Scott about it, and she's just like she's making him feel terrible. I'm not saying what he did was right, but I'm just like, wait a minute, you just willingly kissed Logan at that point. And I know, and I don't think we gotten an answer yet from David, because when he said he had mentioned how it pained him to admit that Scott was wrong. I'm assuming it was because of this, but I agree in the sense of, okay, yeah, he was wrong with that. In a, it's kind of a muddied water, just because like we don't know yet again. We still don't know when the switch happened, but he had a son with Madeline. So I mean, there's a different dynamic. I'm not saying it's right, but it's complicated. But she willingly also kissed Logan, and she's just like, "How dare you have a mental kind of like emotional affair in your mind with it? How dare you do that?" And he has no idea that she kissed Logan. I think he's gonna have some words about that.
Facebook status, it's complicated. It's
a throuple in Krakoa.
Well, yeah, in Krakoa it is a throuple for sure. The thing is, Jean and Wolverine, like, I liked Wolverine's reaction to it. You're Jean, he's Scott, that's it. You just forgot the rules in the story. Enough said. They should have said enough said, not enough said, but whatever.
Whatever. Opportunity lost.
Jean and Cyclops, Jean and Scott, it is such a weird, no pun intended, but accepted gray area that...
Oh, wow, that's beautiful.
He was... I mean, maybe he technically married Jean and not Madeline, but they're the same person. And like, they're literally the same person. He lived with her as though it was her wife. He loved her as though it was her wife. She is the mother of his child. They're going to have a complicated relationship. And it's worth noting, even though, yes, she obviously put them all through the ringer in episode 3, she did come around. It's not like she's still out to kill them and hurting them and actively hunting them. She's not the bad guy she becomes in the comic books.
Which again, it is a quick turnaround at that point. That's one of my strikes against this, in the sense of, okay, I know we got to move it along, but that was a little too fast.
And
for me.
She basically came around because her son was in danger. And I like, for me, I can accept that being the thing that snaps her out.
Fair.
But this connection is going to be there between them. It's not, man, these people need some serious marriage therapy, and I don't know how you even begin to explain it, but like, the whole situation is a gray area again, and it's like they should just, okay, let's let it all wash away. Everything's new. Let's get an annulment, legally, and we're starting from scratch. We're starting over. We're starting from scratch. Would you like to go on a date with me?
Do you mean instead of saying scratch, you mean snick? At that point,
even better. Yes.
Can somebody sit Wolverine down, Morph or Beast or somebody, and say, just walk away from this toxicity, man? Like, it's too much. Like, there's so much baggage. Like, there's so much, like, future tied to this. Baggage. Go find. You got Storm walking around who's an absolute goddess. Like, and there's an episode.
Yeah, I think we need to make sure that we all know that Storm's a goddess, because I don't think that was said enough in just 2 episodes alone.
Well,
3 episodes.
Wait for next week when she's back.
Yeah, I'm not denying it. It was just fine saying, I agree. Storm's a goddess at that point. I think she knows it too.
Also, Scott's actions here this episode, I didn't think prior that we would potentially get the storyline exactly like as Storm comes back, but I could see that happening. I could see that being a road that goes down now, just because of seemingly what Scott's hate that he's still harboring.
Yeah, it's one of those things. So so before we head back to Genosha, aka Krakoa, so we're gonna take our next ad break. So listeners, these ads help keep the lights on the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network. We don't get to choose what ads come on, and give it that 3 count before they come on. 3, 2, 1. We'll be right back. And we are back. All right, so we flash back to Genosha, and we find out that Magneto has finally agreed to become the quote unquote ruler, chancellor, whatever we want to call it, of Genosha on one condition, and the condition was that Rogue would be his queen. I was like, wow, instead of just asking for a marriage proposal at that point, you just work that in there saying, it's a part of the agreement. You got to be with me.
We call that the Black Panther move.
That feels very forward. Feels very forward.
A little bit.
Skip, and I recognize we see a bit of their history and stuff, and they have their past, but it's like we're gonna go straight to effectively king and queen of this new country.
Yeah, it was, and she's not happy with him, and she even drops like, I know we had a prior relationship, but we had issues before, and how dare you not even try to consult me that you want to make this part of the deal? As they say in the movie Fatal Tracks, I'm not a piece of meat, Dan.
Right.
It is rather presumptuous at that point on him. So Rogue then meets with Gambit before the party to tell him their full history, which I'm kind of glad they did. And I was wondering how far we were going to get this. We got far into this one. We saw her with Mystique and how they kind of linked up so that she could kind of learn not necessarily her powers, but what it was to celebrate being a mutant. And I love we got a little homage to her Savage Land clothes, not the full one we get in the comics, because that's even more racy than just as racy as the real Goblin Queen one. But I like the tip of the hat they did.
I like how she referred to her mom like her evil mother. Like that's how she said it instead of just saying Mystique or her mom or whatever. But that's a way to like catch up the new viewers to the show. Like her mom was evil. Like that's just a real quick, straight. You don't have to go into all the specifics. They never touch on the fact that she and Nightcrawler are basically siblings. And like they ignore all of that. It's just my evil mom.
And Creed is somehow their half brother.
Yep.
And even in the comics, somehow that Mystique's not Nightcrawler's mom; it's his dad. So that's a thing.
Like I said, soap opera stuff, man.
I know, yeah.
Stuff.
Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. So, but it was a good sequence, because one of the things that they talk about, and that we already know in her abilities that she absorbs memories, but in a way she's also an empath. Like she that's one of the things she had to separate. One of the reasons she broke up with Magneto is because all the anger and the pain and the hate, like she couldn't deal with the idea of just having always that with it. And we finally get the confirmation, at least in the show, like I was saying from the comics, they can be together because his magnetism kind of creates kind of a force field around them, that they can be physical. Like she can physically touch him. They can be physical together. That's something that Gambit could never give her.
Yeah, and he even says that to Nightcrawler, like, yeah, he's touched her heart, but that's not the touch she's wanting, or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So she tells Gambit that she is choosing to be with Magneto, but he warns her that this love he has for him is just skin deep and not real. And then he kind of throws the Queen of Hearts. They kind of break up at that point, because we saw that Queen of Hearts when he saw her leaving the professor's
I
office.
totally missed that. The Queen broke his heart.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally missed that.
I was right there.
It was. I'm a slacker.
So we do see for just a split second, like you all pointed out, the fireworks going off, and we see a Watcher, probably a Watu. We're also assuming, we're not sure if it's Jeffrey Wright, What If Watcher, but it is a Watcher. And when the Watcher shows up, it's never a good thing, because some serious stuff's about to go down in the Marvel Universe.
I looked it up. I think the Watcher only appeared one other time in the entire series of the show, which was during the Dark Phoenix.
Phoenix saga.
Yep.
And so I don't think he ever appeared other than that.
Him, Thor, and Doctor Strange were the three cameos for that.
You are exactly right. And you do host an animated show all based around superheroes. So
Not like it's the first time I've watched that show or anything.
no, not
Indeed,
either.
Indeed.
So we go to the party, and Val Cooper's there. Not really cool with not just Magneto being named the ruler, but also the people who are making up this lovely nation, including Shaw and Emma. And, she makes this backhanded comment saying nations should not allow terrorists to be a leader. And Magneto, without missing a beat, takes a sip of a drink saying, yet they can let their leaders be terrorists. You're out of line, but you're right.
Right.
And this is where I started seeing, even before finishing the episode, I was like, Val can't be trusted because she sees what's happening in this nation, and they're welcoming all mutants, kind of like what happens in Krakoa. All villains and heroes alike have this nation where they can feel safe. There's immunity, and she sees a problem. And this is why I don't subscribe to what you're saying. I could see it, Travis, at that point. I just think she just is. She can't control this anymore. It's not going the way she wants. And I will point to some, when we do see what happens later on, who she is also working with.
I'm interested to hear your thoughts on
Yeah.
that, because we do get her at one point when shit goes down with her doing something like so terrible, in my opinion, and I do think she's coordinating with the big.
And I'll explain why I don't think she's Mystique later on. But I do see how that could be. But I think there's some things that just I don't.
That's probably an
Don't
easier person to just say.
So yeah, when she makes that kind of comment, I see kind of how her interactions are. I said, is she? I don't trust her anymore. I absolutely don't trust her anymore.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
No.
So we see Rogue make a glorious entrance at that point. I kind of thought this was going to be like the new Hellfire Gala, but it's not. It's a big kind of, state dinner, state kind of dance, coming out party.
Her entrance is like when you see like the dressed up princess or whatever coming down the stairs, except for she's flying.
Yeah. And, she arrives there, Magneto's flying, she's flying, they're dancing.
Very seductive dance for
animation. Yeah.
And for the record, they're dancing to Ace of Base's Happy Nation, which has just blew my mind because I have not heard Ace of Base in forever. And that song has been in my head since Wednesday morning.
Like an earwig.
Just won't stop.
And then let's pull up like iTunes #1 hits at that point. See if it's cracking the top 20. It's like
I bet it did get an uptick in plays.
I would think so too. I would think so. So Gambit's seeing this. It's tearing him apart. Madeline's there, and she's trying to talk to him, and just and they kiss, and it just tears them all up. But then she realizes at that moment when they kiss, like saying, "No, Gambit's right." And she basically tells them, no, I can't be with you. Remy's right. I love you, but he is the true love I want. I love you, Eric. Or he calls her Magnus, or she calls him Magnus. But like, it was the right choice.
It was perfect. It was perfect. And again, it goes back to like we have 5 seasons of them trying to be together, and basically Rogue was the one saying no, no, no. And yes, at this point, she finally realizes yes. So, a little bittersweet, if we're being honest.
And I think it was earlier. Gambit even tells her, like, "You're the one who never wanted to make it official."
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But then all of a sudden, Madeline is like mysteriously zapped right, like where her Sinister Diamond is, and she kind of someone sent her this vision, and. We don't realize. I mean, I realized that because I picked up on the voice immediately, so I already knew who was saying it. She hears a voice. We hear a voice. It's Cable. We hear Cable's voice, and all of a sudden he starts running up. And when he's running up, we actually catch another quick cameo. Marrow is.
He was on the poster, right, in the first episode. Yeah.
Yep, on the poster in the first episode, and he finds Madeline, and he's trying to warn her. And he says, like, he's coming. And he starts realizing, like, he's too late. He keeps on saying he's coming. And she just grabs his face and kind of touches him and sees his eyes. And we don't know who he is. I mean, we can guess, like, it's either Sinister or Apocalypse. We already know the big bad's going to be Sinister in this one. So he's probably saying Sinister. But that's odd for Cable to talk, because it's always against Apocalypse. So it's kind of interesting in the sense, he's seen the future, but it's kind of a new dynamic for him to kind of talk about Sinister in any way, shape, or form. But she's so happy because he said, you made it. You made it. And so then you hear his AI saying, time's run out, slips, is about to slip back. And he says, Mom, I'm so sorry. And like, that's the first time we hear Cable ever in the series, like, acknowledge Jean, Madeline, whatever, Mom. It was
Yeah.
such a heartfelt moment.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
we get for those that don't know, the voice of Cable in this series now is the original voice of Gambit.
Yeah, they did that with Jubilee as well. I
Mhm.
love this little scene, Chris, and I gotta say, I'm not sure who he's talking about. He could very well be referring to just the actual thing we get to see in a little bit.
Yeah. Mhm.
But why show him versus Apocalypse in the first bit of Apocalypse stealing his tech, his little slider?
Mhm.
Why show that if it didn't have any extra meaning?
Well,
So,
so much of Cable in the original series was versus Apocalypse.
Yeah.
So
pretty much all of it. I thought he didn't know it was Apocalypse at the beginning, but that basically is all of it against
Yeah.
Apocalypse.
Mhm. So then we start seeing these big green flash explosions, and then a huge one just targets the area and just explodes. And like people are dead, injured at that point, and we see this monster, 3 to 4 headed sentinel, like just invading and destroying Genosha, or at least one of the main city, capital city of Genosha. And this is directly taken from Grant Morrison's run of New X-Men when the Charles Xavier's sister, Cassandra Nova, initiates this attack on Genosha at that point.
Genosha.
Now, I definitely don't think it's Cassandra Nova. I truly do think this is Val Cooper initiating this with Bolivia or Trask, because Trask made the statement in the first episode, do you think we just disappeared after you defeated us? We've been setting up the chessboard while you've been thinking we're gone. Like, he makes that statement in the first episode, and it wasn't just for that. This has been a plan, and I think Val, because remember at the end they take possession of everything. She is over this kind of police force that took it. She has access to this. She could initiate this and use Trask to say, you know what, this whole Genosha thing, it's not going the way I planned. I'm going to make them subjugated into that we can control it again.
Chris, she's literally going like, "Come here, go here, you'll be okay," and then molecules. That's it. And conveniently enough, she didn't get hit in that blast.
She's not a mutant though.
So
They were just
but
mutants.
the blast is so big.
Which
that I'm just,
actually, I guess if she's not if she didn't register as a mutant, that hurts the Mystique theory. But
Yeah.
You're right. The collateral
that was
damage
my other point,
definitely could have been there for sure for her. But the Cassandra Nova idea, I've seen it going around, and there's only one reason I preface with I don't think it's Cassandra Nova either. I do think the idea though is interesting to slowly build the character up now before they have her in Deadpool and Wolverine, where we pretty much know what's happening. That said, I can't say they've never done it just because they never have done it before. It doesn't mean they never will, but they've never done it before, so there's no history of it. There's no precedent where we've really seen this type of thing. At least not that
it would definitely be a kind of a thing out of left field right now.
Yeah, but like you said in the comics, the attack on Genosha was Cassandra Nova. I mean, she was at the heart of it.
Yeah, and this is where we thought like it was so destroyed, like Magneto was thought to be taken out.
Certainly not impossible, but
No.
I don't think it's likely.
Yeah. So this attack, I mean, no one is safe from this, At one point, Gambit and Rogue are about to be hit, and then Nightcrawler last second teleports them away. And when they emerge, like, he falls out at that point. He looks like he's dead. They even say, is he dead? He's like, he's barely alive at that point.
There was a nice touch there too, where Rogue is just about to go touch him and realizes that she doesn't have her gloves on, and gets Gambit to go check on him. Just again, little things like that are just so nice. Just little touches and nods that you're paying attention to is great.
So it's just it, and then at one point we see Banshee and Meryl flying, and I love it. I'd say, man, Banshee's flying without his scream. I was like, that's new. Usually his scream is what propels him. But just as soon as he's saying we're gonna get help, and boom, bye, both of you eviscerated.
You did.
We head to the Morlock. Morlocks are still in tunnels, even in Genosha. And just like I thought they were supposed to be free. I guess they just The
In their
tunnels where they
defense,
feel.
they're like sitting ducks if they're up top. Like
Yeah,
their
true.
powers aren't
They're probably
exactly.
the best place for them, and and a lot of them are just saying that, you know, that we're going to be abandoned by them. The X-Men don't care about this. Magneto really doesn't care about us. We're just going to be left for dead. And then, what we saw earlier is Magneto told him, "You got to save the Morlocks. I'm going to distract them." Gambit go down there. So Gambit arrives and just like goes full hero mode and rescues the Morlocks as Magneto provides instruction. Now, Gambit saving the Morlocks is even more of an iconic moment for those who know the comics, because in the comics, it is a redemption for him doing this, because Gambit is the one responsible for giving Mr. Sinister and the Marauders access to the Morlock tunnels, causing the mutant massacre in the comics. That is what Gambit's responsible for that. So that was like, oh my gosh, that is such a cool moment to give him in the animated show for those of us that know his history.
Yeah.
And just flawless animation there, Chris. Like every little bit of that was great. When he spun in and defeated the Sentinel last second, just tossed over, just perfect.
Mm-hmm. So Magneto continues to hold the Sentinel back. He basically pushes Rogue, and Rogue trying to help him, but he holds her back, pinging them and Gambit, saying, "Nope, this is me." And he's given everything he's got at that point. Everything he's got, and Leech is now under his protection, and he's got the magnetic shield, and then the Sentinels just like trying to put everything they can, one big blast, and he turns to Leech. And in German, I don't know if he knew Leech knew German, but he basically says, don't be afraid, because Leech had said, even in the tunnels, like Magneto said, we're not going to be afraid anymore. I know he's going to save us. Big blast, gone. There was no body of either.
But we have to assume right now that he's dead, but there's no body.
But there's no body because the Sentinel says Omega level threat eliminated. Here is my tinfoil hat theory. If again, we went Game of Thrones. We're not done yet with deaths happening, but we went Game of Thrones on this. We went Walking Dead on this. Like, no one is safe. Leech was with him. Leech could have siphoned out the powers at the last minute, and Leech maybe be the sacrifice. Magneto somehow pulling off something in the sense of his powers are gone. His powers are at least decimated to a point where Leech is dead. Magneto is not looked at that point, scan-wise, as Omega level 3. Like, somehow he's somewhere else. He got blasted away, like literally blasted away, and he could come back.
I think that's a reasonable idea. The only problem with it is, if his powers are taken from that much, it's that much less likely he can survive the blast to begin with.
Fair. It's just an idea.
It feels like they didn't put Leech next to him for no reason. And that's Leech's powers is basically to suppress the powers of other mutants.
We haven't seen him use those powers very often, would be my other pushback on that, Chris. It does make a little like I don't think this is the last we've seen of Magneto. It could very well be too. Like, we haven't seen any bodies from the blast, so the green blast. I for one think that there's a possibility we saw the green in Mr. Sinister's lab. Maybe these mutants get transported to Mr. Sinister, the ones that get the green blast. I don't know. Like, I don't know. I don't think they're going to kill Magneto off. So I'm really interested to see how this is going to go. This was badass, though. This was awesome, and the way that he talked to Leech just brings the whole first few episodes back full circle, because he found him, couldn't believe the X-Men didn't do anything for him, and ultimately Magneto gave up his life for them.
Yeah. So Rogue breaks free, goes full rage. He goes after the Sentinel, and then Gambit goes after with her. I even go back, like, Magneto even, like, when he's like seeing all this destruction going down, like throwing he goes full on, like saying, "I'm not having this. We're gonna make our stand." At that point, like throwing the trains at it, like everything thrown at this massive, like, mega Sentinel. And so Rogue's basically, after Magneto's presumed dead and eliminated, going after her. Gambit's going after her. They're throwing
everything. The motorcycle to stop Rogue.
Yeah, using the motorcycle to stop Rogue. And as he goes up, the Sentinel's trying to stop him. He's dodging things left and right. And then he basically gets stabbed on the side by the Sentinel. He kind of smirks, uses his powers on the metal where he stabbed from, and he basically says the name is Gambit, remember it, and just boom,
It,
Sentinel's gone. And we get to a news report that's being watched at the mansion about the destruction of Genosha. This is their version of the mutant massacre, and we see Rogue at the end. Just a heartbreaking moment. She is holding Gambit's lifeless body, touching his face without her gloves for the and saying, like, crying, saying she can't feel him anymore. And that's where we get the end credits. We get a very somber piano of the theme. And I was just like, then they start. I was wondering if the credits were gonna choose violence at that point, but I like having X's or red X's over the ones who have been eliminated. I was like, I had to go back and I said, are we going that hard? They didn't do it.
The Avengers
They did-
in-game posters, remember the Fallen? And...
Yeah, exactly. Or in the sense of like, sorry, these characters are no longer playable anymore.
like regular Nintendo Ninja
Yeah.
Turtles, where you
When-
lose and then surely can't use it anymore.
When
Yeah.
Rogue said, "I can't feel you,"
Oh my God, broke me.
heartbreaking moment. Channeling Wanda from WandaVision to
Mm-hmm.
talking to Vision's body so much. It's like, great, they've used it twice. I can't feel you. They've used those 4 words on us twice. Totally worked both times.
Yeah, and I want to throw in a couple things
Yeah.
while we were getting to that, Chris. When the statue topples over and kills a bunch of mutants, and just to see Magneto's reaction,
Yeah.
that was awesome. And shout out to Bo DeMeo, who was the creator
we're
of
gonna
this.
we're gonna go over that.
No, but he was in this show, in this the person when the Sentinels just about to destroy stuff, Nightcrawler included. He is one there with looks like his boyfriend, and they're going to get destroyed. And that's when Gambit comes in. It changes from green to red and goes at him instead. But right there on the people going to get hit, the animated person looks just like him.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, cool.
Absolutely. Yeah, I caught that too at that point. So we're probably not going to get much resolution with next week, because next week is Life Death Part 2. We only get one more episode before the three part conclusion of the season. And
I think time travel will be used to resolve these events.
well, I'm kind of with, I know the Geekverse guys talked about it last night. I also will have a little bit of problems with it if we just basically time travel and timey wobbly stuff in the sense of bringing everyone back.
Ask me after we see how it's done.
Yeah, okay, fair. It's just if everything's brought back all tidy at that point, I will have problems.
Days of Future Past work for me, so the live action. So if you can do it right,
If you can do it right, true. But
hard needle to thread.
I appreciated this episode having stakes that I did not see coming.
Sure. And I can't disagree with that. I just because they're going to bring everybody back, presumably, doesn't mean this. To me, that doesn't hurt this episode anymore. Just like Infinity War, we all knew that, like,
Fair point.
we were Spider-Man is dead. Black Panther, really? Like, they just killed those guys? Black Panther just had his first movie. Spider-Man just had his first MCU movie. Like, no, of course we all knew they were coming back. The question was how. It was all about the execution. If the execution is there, it won't bother me. If the execution...
Poor choice of words. Too soon.
I'm going with it. If the execution is poorly done, then it's a problem. But we'll find out in a few weeks.
Yeah, the idea, let's say, like I said, I think of all the deaths at this point, I think Magneto's the most likely to be. We didn't see body, we didn't see this, we didn't see, like, really that could come back. I'll be okay with that. I think the idea of Gambit sacrificing himself and keeping, that's a death that I said that means something.
It was a great moment.
It was a great moment. It's a great moment for the character. I think that one, like, you're right. You're right. The execution does come down in the sense of if there are going to be some time travel, some changes with it, it'll determine it. But I think that one's still going to feel really rough on me in the sense of that's a character that, like, you're right. Okay, compared to Spider-Man, Black Panther, we know those characters come back. Gambit doesn't have to come back in order for the X-Men to be whole again.
But you have the stuff with Baby Nathan. Bishop is out there. Like, he went back to his own time, and Cable popped up in this episode.
Yeah.
Time travel is going to be a part of it.
I have one for both of you guys, your points here. One for Brant is we've seen Charles Xavier die, and then timey-wimey travel go back and reverse it in previous seasons.
Yep.
But to Chris's point about Gambit dying, I do think that at the end of season 5, like what Charles says to him about how many times do you have to be a hero before you realize it. Like this guy, I think that what Chris is saying that really plays into all this. Like that's extra meaning for me of him sacrificing
Well,
himself
he
in the
certainly
final there.
proved it. He certainly
Yeah.
proved it this week.
So it goes along, or maybe Professor X could show up and bring everybody back with new superpowers.
Mm-hmm.
Just it got to be done right for me. I want to have stakes. So I'm with Chris on that. Like I can see Magneto coming back, but not Gambit, and that might do some damage.
Professor X comes back, updated super suits for everybody, and
sorry guys, I'm back now.
gonna get the Cyclops suit where his visor is basically the X shape.
Yeah.
And,
yeah, exactly. So, you brought up earlier, Bo DeMeo being kind of in this episode. No longer part of the, he's also the showrunner for the upcoming second season, no longer a part of it, but he did return back from Twitter to kind of break silence because of how big this episode was. And he wrote a statement about kind of how this came about. And I think it's something to be said to read it because I think there's a lot of truth in the sense of what he does. So I'm going to read it what he said. He said, a lot of questions, and so I'll momentarily break my silence to answer. Episode 5 was a centerpiece of my pitch to Marvel in November of 2020. That's how far this pitch goes back. The idea of having the X-Men mirror the journey that any of us who grew up on the original show have experienced since being kids in the 90s. The world was seemingly safer place for us, where the character like Storm would comment on skin-based racism was quaint in one man's worth. For the most part, to our young minds, the world was a simple place in right and wrong where questions about identity and social justice had relatively clear answers. Then 9/11 happened, and the world turned itself upside down. Things weren't so safe anymore. Grassroots populist movements begun to rise around the world as a whole nation struggled to deal with the collective trauma and fracture of what had been divisive demographic. The effects still feel today, and they only have been exacerbated by more collective trauma like COVID and several recessions. For me personally, 9/11 was also when I came out of the closet to my family and realized that everyone would not accept me. It's when I entered college and noticed that certain groups avoided me, or that a Supercuts in Tallahassee refused to service me because they didn't do quote-unquote ethnic haircuts. Reality, as Jubilee found out in episode 4, got very real and very scary. This happened to many people. We had kids and got jobs and with high stakes. Suddenly, it wasn't enough for us to survive. We had responsibilities, and people whose survival depended on us meeting the responsibilities. We were growing up. If you were like me, you would actually watch old episodes of the OG cartoon to comfort myself and to take yourself back. God knows I did during COVID, but just like Roberto warned Jubilee, there's a danger of living in the past and clinging to nostalgia. There's a danger to not letting go of who we think we are, as Cyclops and Jean are learning. It leaves us stagnant and dangerously unaware of the future we didn't anticipate. Yes, it looked like Gambit's story was going to be a specific direction. The crop top was chosen to make you love him. Him pulling his shirt was intentional. There was a reason he told Rogue any fool would suffer her hand in a dance, even if it ended up not being him suffering. But if events like 9/11, Tulsa, Charlottesville, or the Pulse nightclub teach us anything, it's that too many stories are often far too short. I partied at Pulse. It was my club. I have so many great memories of its awesome white lounge. It was, like Genosha, a safe place for me, and everyone liked me to dance and laugh to be free. I thought about this a lot when crafting this season and this episode, and how the gay community in Orlando rose to heal from that event. Like many of us who grew up in the OG cartoon, the X-Men have now been hit hard by the realities of adult in an unsafe world. Life's happened to them, and they, like we did, will have to decide which parts of themselves they will cling to and which parts they will let go in order to do what they've been telling humanity to do, face an uncertain future they never saw coming. As Trask told Cyclops in the premiere, you have no idea what it's like to be left behind by the future. Now the X-Men do. And like each of us, they'll have to weigh whether this is time for social justice, or as Magneto preached at his trial, is it a time for social healing? And Bo DeMea also responded to the thing saying, this is just the beginning of this episode is just the beginning of more pain to come.
I'll say this: he's done such a great job and has such a great understanding of the X-Men. I will probably always be curious what happened and why he was let go.
Yeah, it is one of the things, and here is one theory I'll put out there. This is not a fact or fiction, because I think I want to put it out there in the sense of like if it were to happen, like if Magneto comes back, if he does come back, everything he has tried to do at this point, with if it's revealed that this is humans against it of epic proportions, we're back to evil Magneto, but we're going to go, a different way.
Yes.
And actually, I am making this a fact or fiction, so I'm going to hold off on the rest of that, and I'll show you how evil he is going to be in my fact or fiction.
We're getting a war, Chris.
Well,
We're going to get a war.
I agree with what you're saying. If this was the humans, they're screwed.
Yeah.
They're absolutely screwed.
So
the humans better hope that there was somebody like Apocalypse, Sinister, Bastion, even Mystique, like somebody else behind it.
The
who
green,
is immune.
the shooting out the green makes me think possibly Sinister could be involved.
Oh yeah,
I'm not sure.
Absolutely. So yeah, we're probably gonna take a pause. We may get some hints about this. Storm may be seeing some TV reports and things like that. But we've got Life Death Part 2 next week. So Travis, as always, a pleasure.
Thanks, boys. See you next week.
you,
For Life
Travis.
Death Part 2. Later, everyone.
Later. All right. So Brent, let us head back to some. We got some feedback. We got no news this week. No, like we know CinemaCon happened. There's some stuff that broke down, but it was basically kind of descriptions of trailers or footage that we're seeing. We, typically we don't do that on this show. So right now we're gonna hold back on doing anything like that.
Yeah, we had one question this week that came in as actually we should have read it before Travis left, about Omari Daniels, or from Omari Daniels about X-Men 97. He says, since it's such a huge hit, would you want to see the MCU X-Men film take inspiration from its roster and story or go in a different direction? So, do we want to see a live-action version of X-Men 97's roster, the story they're telling, or something different? What do you think?
I'm fine with them taking little things here or there, but I want them to kind of get their own version. If they're going to do it, fine, but I don't need a live action version of X-Men 97. I want them to do what they want to do.
It's really hard to say yes or no on this, mainly because all X-Men 97 is doing is the X-Men, right? Magneto's involved. Like it's picking up like Apocalypse was part of this world, Sinister, Genosha, Sentinel. Like it's X-Men stuff, and that's all stuff I want to see in live action. I will say, to me, this is the most definitive team of X-Men, but that's mainly from my growing up watching this show. Yeah. Obviously, there are other vital X-Men members as well. One thing I like that it's doing. Wolverine's a part of it, but he's on the back burner, right? Like he's barely been in the last few episodes, and I'm fine with it. I'm not complaining. I like the character. I think he's a great character. I also think too many times it becomes Wolverine and the X-Men, and
like the show name, right?
Right, and I would rather have it be about the ensemble, and they've done a really, really good job of focusing on characters who are not named Wolverine in this series. And don't get me wrong, I'm hoping we get another great moment with him, but we've really only had the one moment when he did the moment with Gambit and Morph and took out the Master Mold in the first episode. Like, there really hasn't been anything else from Wolverine. So I feel like we need that. I also want to mention, I want some real costumes. These are my favorite X-Men costumes. Yeah. I'd love to see live action adaptations of these, but there's other great X-Men costumes that they could also pull from, and that'd be okay too.
Yeah. All right, so thank you, Omari, for the question at that point. So let's head to Fact or Fictions from last week. These were yours, Brett. So we will see the Daredevil yellow suit from She-Hulk in at least one episode, and at least once in Daredevil Born Again. We've got a 50-50 split.
Sounds about right.
Yep. Number 2, the Secret Wars movie will have an in-canon comic book tie-in. 77% said fact, 23% said fiction. And number 3, in the movie, Galactus will have his comic book look, including his helmet. 93% said fact, 7% said fiction. All right, so this week we'll start off with the Daredevil. I got 1 Daredevil, 2 X-Men 97. We'll start off with Daredevil. Simple one. Daredevil Born Again will drop on Tuesday nights at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
God, I hope so. Fact.
I think they want this to be prime time kind of viewing, much like they've done. I mean, as we'll talk about in post credits, they're going to be channeling everything from the old series as they can, not just casting, but beats and things like that. So yeah, I'm a fact on this one.
That time seems to have worked well for both Marvel and Star Wars live action projects. I don't think it's going back.
Yeah, I think they do well. So, all right, X-Men 97 questions now. Before the end of X-Men 97, it either at the end of this season or at some point, all right, we will get some, if possibly all, of the team getting new suits.
Some or all?
Yes, some or all. Some will be
Fact.
changing costume, if not all.
Fact. I think we'll see some new costumes.
Yeah, of the main squad that we've got right now.
Yeah,
so.
yeah.
I'm a fact as well. All right, this is what I was hinting towards at the end of our breakdown. So, Magneto will return in X-Men 97. Maybe not at the end of this season. Maybe towards the beginning of he will return.
It won't take that long.
Having lost faith in what he tried to do, trying to be good to hold himself to what Charles wanted him to do, but having lost faith, he will go full villain. But a villain we have never seen before. We're talking like full on. The most hardcore villain you could ever see Magneto be, and we will see a version of Fatal Attractions on this show, because that is probably the most villainous we have ever seen Magneto in the comics.
I guess Wolverine will get his moment.
Yeah.
Oh wow, that's tough. I'm gonna say fact, and I'm just gonna put a little asterisk in if it's a human behind the Genosha massacre. But I think it is. I think there's a very good chance of that. So yeah, I'm gonna say fact, and that'll be quite the visual if they do that.
Yeah, I think, not just my theory of that. Again, I could easily see, because brings up a good point. Like the blasts were green. We saw a lot of green in that Sinister and the Vats and things like that. So I could easily see that happening, but. It would just be one of these things like, I tried to play it your way. I tried to be good. I tried to do this your way, and you did this to us at that point. I'm done. You thought I was a villain before. Watch me now.
I could see mutants being behind it, but framing humans so that we still get to the same thing, because I really should say if Magneto believes it's the humans behind it, that is what will cause it.
Yep, that will cause it. And again, the how they have really gone some pretty mature kind of themes and sequences in this. This episode included. It's like, I could see them doing an adaptation. We talked about it last week of arcs we'd like to see. I could see them now doing a definite adaptation of Fatal Attractions, because you look at that. It's not just what happens to Wolverine. It was like in every single X comic, he went back. He doubled down on his villainous stuff. Like everyone was affected by this. And then Professor X did something that he had never thought he could ever be capable of against Magneto. So, but yeah, all right.
Good times.
Yeah, I know. Oh my gosh, one of my favorite arcs next to Age of Apocalypse. So, all right. So I will post those Sunday afternoon to let your voices be heard. All right, Comic Book Club. Brent, we got our penultimate chapter of Old Man Logan, and man, I think this is next to seeing what happened in Wolverine's past, this was definitely my most anticipated one.
The Red Skull wearing Captain America's suit just is blasphemous. It's just blasphemous. I don't like it. Really cool, but I don't like it. I had forgotten that this timeline, this time period when the comic was actually coming out would have been Bucky Cap.
Yeah, you're right. Yep.
So that is, we see Red Skull, it says 50 years earlier, and he's defeated Captain America, and it's Bucky Cap, or at least it's Bucky Cap's costume. So we have to assume that's who it is. Um, and I really enjoyed the Red Skull's little trophy room
Yeah.
that he had there.
Very Maestro like, if it were.
And a lot of that's pretty gruesome, or like it implies gruesome, like Spider-Man's mask. To get that, that was bad. Parts of Daredevil's strange, whatever. But the Thing's hand is there. That's a story I want to know what happened to that right there. Like, how did he get the Thing's hand?
Yeah. The Nega Band, Captain Marvel's suit, Vision's what's left of his head.
Yeah, if you go to the next page and then zoom in, you can see a whole lot more trophies that he has taken.
Yeah, like I said, very, very much like Maestro. He got the pants of Hulk.
Hey, the man's likes purple, I'm not gonna blame him.
Yeah, I wonder what that book is underneath the pants. Though I that's one I can't.
I'm gonna guess the Darkhold with the giant D on it, but I don't know.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, it's one of the we get the delivery of the super soldier serums at that point. Then we get that another thing, the Fantastic Four car all shot up. But they bring the body of Hawkeye, and they say, "Wait a minute, something's wrong with this other body." At that point, and up like it's riddled with bullet holes, but it's that healing factor is coming back. It's a little weak. It's still working at that point, but
takes a little longer, sure.
And we get a pretty like slobber knocker fight between Old Red Skull and Old Man Logan.
Yeah, not the cleanest for either of them, but I enjoyed the moment, especially like at one point Skull has a sword and he hits Captain America, or he hits Captain America's shield that Wolverine is holding, and he just says no, like he's incredibly worried about it. And the fight ends in a very brutal fashion. And let's just say that John Walker in Falcon and Winter Soldier, not the first one to bash someone's head in with the shield and take a head off, if you will.
Yeah, and I just like Red Skull just daring him. You don't have the guts, and remember, he's not popping his claws. He'll he's a pacifist to a point now that we've seen, but he's still. I mean, he says it. I can't betray what my kids are doing. I can't betray what I promised my kids, and just like you said, slices it off, and
credit to the art. You can see Wolverine's wounds healing as the panels progress.
Yep. And like he said, can't let the kids down, got to find a way out. So before the Nazis bust in, he finds his way can still fulfill that obligation and dons Iron Man suit, blasts them all, takes the money because they can pay, and then just flies his way home, as far as it can take him.
Yeah, it ends like a few hundred miles away from making it home or something like that.
Yeah, he's about 500 miles from Sacramento.
Okay, yeah. And then it says 36 hours later, and he arrives back home. And he's going to wish he didn't.
Yeah, because he's got the money, and his neighbor says, tell the Hulks I'm there. So the Hulk gangs already came. He's like, what do you mean they already came? Like, I still got time. He says, oh, they got bored. And
ouch.
They murdered his entire family.
Yep. And, well, that's enough to break a 50-year vow.
Yeah. He says, don't go. His neighbor says, don't go do something stupid. It's going to make it pain for the rest of us. Honor your family, bury them, things like that. He keeps on saying, Logan, are you hearing me? He says, the name's not Logan, bub. Skint, it's Wolverine, and he pops his claws for the first time since that fateful evening. So we're going to be concluding our look at Old Man Logan with Wolverine, Old Man Logan Giant Size Special #1. And next week we will reveal to you all what Brent and I's choice for the next comic book club is.
Yes, absolutely.
So
I'm excited for it because it's something I've never read.
Yep, same here. So again, episode 210 in the books. Just breaking down a amazing episode of X-Men 97, and looking forward to more next week in 211 in Life Death Part 2. So Brent, tell people how they can follow you.
Yeah, Brent Tech Prime on the socials. DMs are open. Send in your questions. You do not have to wait for me to either tweet it or post it on threads that the questions are. That's really just more a reminder, but you can send them anytime.
Yep. And you can follow this show on on Twitter at Marvel A Podcast. You can follow me personally at Chris Balga. Follow my other show, World's Finest True Believers, at Finest Believers. And as always, we want to thank OrganicPriceBooks.com. Use that code MarvelGU at checkout to get $2 off every single order. And you can, let's see what else. You can email us at Marvel Alliance Podcast at gmail.com. You can follow the Geek Ultimate Alliance Network at GUA Pod Network. Feel free to tweet, email, provide feedback, ask questions. Continue to rate and review the Marvel Alliance solo feed, the GUA Network feed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, wherever you get your podcasts. As always, we greatly appreciate it. Thank you all for joining us live in the chat. Thank you all for listening. Stay safe out there, everyone. And as Stan the Man would say, Excelsior, true believers. All right, Brent, post-credits discussion. We did have a news item, but we figured to, for those of you that don't want spoilers and things like that, we're going to be talking some Daredevil set photos.
Second week in a row.
Second week in a row at that point. So if you don't want to know anything, you want to stay away from it, we'll see you all next week at that point. Now is the time to tune out. All right, spoiler warning in 3, 2, 1. We had, a couple weeks ago, I do have people that reach out to me, and sometimes they give me scoops and heads up on things. Sometimes I say, yep, tell me. Sometimes I say, nope, I want to be surprised, and they thankfully back off. So luckily, I've got 2 or 3 of those that will let me know. So I had a heads up about this, but Brent, I had to respect my co-host thing, because sometimes he's okay with some spoilers, sometimes he's not okay. As I told him there, I treat him like mushrooms. I cover him in crap and keep him in the dark.
That's fine with me. It's the safest policy.
But this one thankfully kind of got put out in the ether, and he was not disappointed about it. We now have official confirmation that Alizette Zerrer is returning to play Vanessa Fisk.
Yes.
And these are our first views, brought to you by photographer Steve Sands.
There were reports that, and forgive me, I'm forgetting who it was, that the character of Vanessa had been recast.
Yes.
And, we all just kind of understand it, accepted it. A show this many years later that they're bringing back, they're going to recast it. And pretty much it was, the things I saw, the reports I saw, chalked it up to scheduling as the primary issue.
Yep.
Well, this is one of those things that probably
writer strike help.
Positive side effect of the strikes, plus back to formula, and it results in another original cast member. Right now, I cannot think of anyone who's been recast at this point. Like she was.
Yeah.
There are obviously new cast members and new characters who have been added, but I cannot think of anyone we know of coming back that we know is there. That is, I mean, we have Kingpin, we have Vanessa, obviously Daredevil, Karen, Foggy, Punisher. All of them are confirmed. I'm forgetting his name, but the actor who plays Brett Mahoney, who was a detective across the Defender shows, he at one point alluded to he might be back, but he feels like a small enough character that they would just have a different person play that, fill that role of detective or captain or whatever his rank was at the end of it all.
Yeah, we saw, the return of officially Wilson Fisk in Echo at that point, but, in Daredevil, like, he was still a fairly large guy in the sense of muscles. Like, they have kept him thinned out for this show.
Yeah.
Like, he is looking slim. He's still looking powerful, but much slimmer of a look than he was in the 3 seasons of Daredevil on Netflix.
It is. And he had talked about, D'Onofrio had talked about at one point having to bulk up for that role and put on quite a bit of weight for it. There is another character that a lot of people are hoping gets recast, that it's looking like, no official confirmation, but Finn Jones, I don't remember if we mentioned it or not. He alluded on Instagram that he was going to be back. He posted a picture of like a Power Man and Iron Fist comic book and something else related to a different project he was doing.
Apparently got it at a fan gave it to him at a Comic-Con.
And so it seems a little weird that he posted that, but if it's just, hey, look at this cool thing a fan gave me, all right, that's fine.
Yeah.
It's got people talking though, so we'll see if he's actually coming back or not.
Well, again, great news all around. This was not someone who, this one was a very high quality camera. These were high definition photos at this point. It hasn't been struck down, so Marvel is probably is not happy, but also allowing this to get out.
And really, that's a big part of why I'm okay with seeing these set photos. In general, I don't like them. I don't like my first view of things to be garbage takes. I don't want it to be. That's partly why I don't like trailer descriptions. I think that's boring. Like I'm like, no, I don't want to read about it. Someone else watching a trailer.
wanna
I
see
want
it.
to see the trailer. I don't want to see blurry, fuzzy images or leaked trailers that are low quality. I want high quality material the first time. And these pictures and the pictures we saw of the Punisher and stuff, they've been high quality pictures, so I've been happy to look at them.
Yeah. So again, more great news coming out of Daredevil Born Again. So we'll continue on with next week our further breakdowns of X-Men Episode 6, Life Death Part 2, and whatever news is breaking. So you all have a great weekend and upcoming next week, and we will see you then. Bye-bye.